In his book, The Splendid and the Vile, Erik Larson tells a very unique and interesting story about the actions of the enemy. The story is set in the time of World War II when Nazi Germany was bombing England during the Blitz. And what we find is that one of the interesting things that Germany did is they created these fake radio stations that the English people could listen to. They had English speakers that sounded just like your normal everyday radio station. But they were actually being run as a propaganda by the Nazi government. And every single time there would be a battle, or airplanes destroying each other in the air, or something significant that was happening in the midst of the war, these fake radio stations would make it seem like to the English-speaking public that they were losing and losing handedly to Nazi Germany. The reason behind this is they would give these graphic details of the battle from the perspective of they wanted to make it seem like it was much worse than what it really was. Hitler wanted to crush the will and the fighting spirit of the English people and of the nation, and he was attempting to use this as one of those means. You know, we were talking this year about taking ground, that it's the theme for our year here at Glad Tidings Harpeth City, that in our life, in our marriage, and in our families, in our relationships, and most certainly in our church, that we're believing that this is the year that God is challenging us to take ground, to push back the enemy, to be a part of what God is doing and what he is calling us to do. You know, that story though about the plan and the attack of the enemy, it reminds me a little bit of Psalms chapter 3. David writes this and he said, "Oh Lord, I have so many enemies. So many are against me. So many are saying that God will never rescue him." You know, he's talking about this and he's saying, listen, my enemies are speaking, they're whispering, they're saying things into my ear, they're gathering, and it doesn't look good. In fact, this moment in David's life is a pressure cooker moment. He's not in the palace, he's on the run, even from his own son, and it doesn't know whether or not he's going to make it out of this alive. And in the midst of all this, in the midst of that situation, it's more than just the pressure cooker of that situation. It's that these people, they're saying and they're speaking and they're trying to get David to believe certain things, even certain things about God. Notice that last line. So many are saying God will never rescue him. It's important for us to see what David did in that moment. In fact, when you read Psalms chapter 3, there's this really important word, it's Selah. We don't fully know what it means, but we know it means an interlude. It could be something that's for the people who are playing music, or it's like a moment of pause. But what we see David do in that moment is vitally important, because what he writes next is this: "But you, O Lord, are a shield around me. You are my glory, the one who holds my head high. I cried out to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy mountain." See, our taking ground journey is naturally going to be hinged on choosing what voice we choose to listen to. Whether we choose to listen to the voice of God or listen to the voice of the enemy. To listen to what the Holy Spirit is leading and challenging us to do in obedience, or to what our situation and circumstance is trying to dictate. You know, in that time of Nazi Germany and England, what was going on, there was two different voices coming to the English people. The voice of the enemy being pumped through the radio waves, but then also the voice of their leader, Winston Churchill. And I want you to listen to what he had to say. This is one of his quotes, and it's, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts." Thankfully, they listened to that voice and not the voice of the enemy. Proverbs chapter 24, verse 16 says this. It says, "The godly may trip 7 times, but they will get up again. But one disaster is enough to overthrow the wicked." See, there's a power in choosing to listen to the right voice. It's what compels us to get up that 7th time. It's what compels us to keep going. It's what's compelling us to continue to take ground even when we find opposition. Because can I tell you something? If you're going to be a part of taking ground this year, you're going to come up against some walls. You're going to come up against some schemes of the enemy. You're going to come up against some things where he does not like what you're doing and the path that you're on. But if we will choose to listen to the right voice, we can echo the words of David. In verses 5 and 6, he says, "I lay down and I slept, and I woke up safely, for the Lord was watching over me. And I'm not afraid of 10,000 enemies who surround me on every side." I want to encourage you today. Listen to me. Don't be discouraged. don't be dismayed, and don't give up. If you've hit that wall, if you've found that place where the enemy's pushing against you, maybe your circumstances are trying to convince you, don't take ground. Instead, just kind of give up on what God has spoken. Give up on what he's challenged you. I want to encourage you, be bold, be strong, be brave. Don't be discouraged. Get back up. Remember Proverbs 24, verse 16. The godly may trip up 7 times, but they will get up again. Get back up. Go after what God has called you to do and what he has called you to take ground in.